Irish Breakdown Nation, happy 4th of July. We are coming to you live following up Kaydon Finley's commitment to the University of Notre Dame. It is a great day to be a Notre Dame fan. Also a great day to be here in the United States celebrating the 4th of July. But look, man,
Yes.
this is a big
one, yeah.
big commitment. So Notre Dame just landed their 23rd recruit in the 2026 class. It is elite 4-star wide receiver Kaydon Finley from Aledo, Texas.
Yes, sir. I believe Aledo. I think it's
Aledo,
but yeah.
Okay, from Aledo.
As long as you did the Kaydon Finley part right, that's all I really care about.
That's what I'm saying. I get that, but he is the number 93 player in the country and the number 13 player in the state of Texas, according to Rivals. We at Irish Breakdown grade him out as a top 100 guy. Right now, he's a 4.5-star guy with the opportunity to very much grade out as a 5-star.
And we'll talk about why that is, but I think with some of the things I've seen from him this offseason, I have a feeling if he does in his senior year what I think he's going to do, he'll jump up to top 50 overall, or top, that 4.5-star overall grade, and then a 5-star upside grade. But it's a big one, man. It's a big one.
We love it. Well, you guys know how we're going to get down here. We're going to talk about backstory. We're going to dive into class impact. As always, we got to turn on the film.
Got to do it.
Have to turn, especially with this kid, you got to turn the film on. And then we're going to tie it all in a bow and talk about what's next, because there are some more potential commitments that are going to be coming out this week. Big weekend for Notre Dame recruiting if they're able to close on some of these kids. But Brian, no doubt about it, this is a massive commitment.
I mean, this is so big, Trev. This is one that we've been waiting on for a while. And there's a lot of different reasons why this one is big. Obviously it's big because you're getting a heck of a football player, as you guys are going to see when we kind of dive into his stats and his film and all of those things. It's filling a big need, which will break down in the class impact. But I think this is also big for Mike Brown because, I think Mike Brown is a guy that's from some circles has gotten a very bad rap. And I think that there were things that happened in last year's recruiting cycle that he gets blamed for that I don't think were on him. I think we're more about the recruiting operation making mistakes. And then you kind of come out and he catches a lot of flack for how the season went. And I think that's a little bit unwarranted. And, I was having a conversation today with someone who I admire greatly on our board. But he was talking about, if you're a great receiver, if you're coaching them well, then the production, I'm like, well, receivers can't call pass plays. They can't throw the football to themselves. But I just think it's one of those deals where he needs some wins. And the Bubba Frazier win was a big win, but because he's not like a highly ranked recruit, I don't think that was one that created as much buzz. Although, Trev, you and I have mentioned multiple times lately, like you pop in that kid's film, that's a really good football player. With Kaydon Finley, this is a big win for Notre Dame in a lot of ways, Trevor. It's a big win because Mike Brown gets a huge recruiting W. This is the biggest win of his career from a combination of the player, combination of the impact, the perception, all those type of things. It's just, it's a big one. And, Trev, you go into Texas and you beat Texas for a kid they wanted and a kid that Texas A&M wanted, whose dad played at Texas. It's another one. I mean, and so just a great win for Mike Brown, for the Notre Dame staff, because nowadays there's no one coach that recruits a player. It's really a group effort in a lot of different ways. But this is a big win, and then just the perception of what this means for the class for the reasons I just talked about. So, I mean, this is a big one, Trev, and it's at a position where, as well as Notre Dame is recruited, this is one that there's still a lot of pushback or negativity or concern. And to a degree, it's understandable about how well they're recruiting the position. So getting this win for Notre Dame is just absolutely huge. And now you can say, okay, now the receiving corps has a chance to, be on par with a lot of these other positions. Because I'll be honest, I'm very high on Bubba Frazier. I grade Dylan Faison as a 4-star. I'm grade Devin Fitzgerald is a 4-star. Grade Braden Robinson is a 4-star. Those are two kids who are going to commit this weekend. Devin Fitzgerald will Notre Dame, Clemson, Stanford, UCLA. Braden Robinson, Notre Dame, Arizona, Miami. If Notre Dame gets both of those are all great pickups with Bubba Frazier, with Dylan Faison. But this class couldn't reach its full potential, in my opinion, without Kaydon Finley. And that's just a fact. So it's just a huge win in that regard as well, Trevor. and you start to get a little bit fired up. Like, okay, now you can really look at it and say, boy, there's no position that's going to be considered like not big time now that you've got him in the class.
Yeah, it's absolutely a game changer getting Kaydon Finley in this class. And, you know, last year, and I know we're going to dive more into this in the class impact, but, you know, last year's recruiting class, you were kind of lacking like that guy, like the definer of that position group in the class. And that's what Kaydon Finley does for you in the 2026 class. But let's talk a little bit about backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, what all went into this recruitment? Because it sounds like it was a battle.
It was.
Yeah,
it
man.
was. I mean, look, it was a battle, really, in my opinion, for one reason and one reason only, and that's because his dad went to Texas. And here's what I mean by that is, so Notre Dame got involved in Kaydon Finley long time ago. I mean, they've been recruiting him for a very long time, and he was a guy that was a priority recruit for a long time. I mean, he's a guy that's been on the board for us, a guy that we've been talking about, Trevor, for well over a year. I mean, he was part of the pot of gold offer breakout. I mean, it was immediately was a guy that was a top target for Notre Dame. You know, they got him on campus. You think about this. This is a kid from Texas, and he's made, I'm looking at 6 or 7 different trips to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame was considered early on the kind of the team to beat, or one of the teams to beat for him. I think Mike Brown did a great job building that relation with him. Other coaches on the staff, the recruiting staff, have done a great job kind of building him up. And then you get into this last, I'd say, like 6 months where, you know, Texas really throws their hat into the ring, and Texas really makes a big push. And obviously, you know, this is a young man that's been to Texas quite a few times as well, since his dad played there. He's from Texas. And, you know, so Notre Dame gets him on campus a bunch of different times. They make a push for him. Then Texas starts kind of heating things up. They start making a push for him. And all of a sudden this becomes a game. And it becomes a battle for his services. And so, because Texas actually offered him back in 2022. I don't know at what point in time. I'm sure they re-offered him at some point in time, but it's not like Texas just decided 2 months ago to make Kaydon Finley a priority. It's just Notre Dame did a great job, just as an entire staff, recruiting him. Then there's the pull to play at in-state U, and the pull to play at his dad's alma mater. And one good thing that I was told multiple times by folks on the Texas side and the Notre Dame side is Jermichael Finley and his wife, and Kane's mom, were not pushing him to Texas. It was, look, this is your life. I'm obviously a proud alum of Texas, but like, this is your life. This is your decision. They were supportive of whatever he was going to do. So I think that helped Kaydon kind of go into this with an open mind of what's best for me. And so you go, and it's Notre Dame's the leader, and we kind of get into the winter. Then all of a sudden, I think I put an update up in April where I did a predicted class. Kaydon Finley was in it, wasn't concerned. And then I did one in May, and I said, look, I still think they're going to get him, but I'm a little bit more concerned about it now than I was then, because I think that's when it came down to, okay, now I'm sort of entering decision-making mode over this next month or so. And now it starts to get real about, am I leaving home? Am I going all the way to Notre Dame? Am I doing all these things? And Texas really turned up the heat on Kaydon Finley as well. And so there was a lot of rumblings that, you know, that he might be, you know, that Texas might be in this thing maybe a little bit more than we thought. So Notre Dame worked really hard to get Kaydon Finley. Obviously, he had his official visit the weekend of the 13th. So this is another one of those big June 13th recruiting wins. But they got him on campus for an unofficial visit that first week of June. That was huge, because what they were able to do that weekend is kind of get the momentum back. And then obviously he goes to, I think he went to, let me get his visit schedule, because he went somewhere. He went to A&M, and he went to UCLA in May. He had Notre Dame on the 13th, and then he had Texas on the 20th. And so getting him on campus that weekend, and then 2 weeks later, they get him back on campus for the official. That momentum in that 2 week time is what got them back to where it was before, months ago, when it was like Notre Dame was the team to beat. And so to climb up and get on top and then kind of weather that storm from Texas, I never felt Notre Dame lost the lead. And there was a lot of people that were like, they're not going to get him, and Mike Brown sucks, and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, look, calm down a little bit, because I still felt Notre Dame led. I still had him in my predicted class. It just was like, this might be a little bit more of a fight than what we thought it was going to be. And Notre Dame said, bring it on. And they did a great job of going out there and reminding him. And it was about consistency of message. And then, of course, the relationships with Mike Brown and the staff. And then, of course, Marcus Freeman doing what Marcus Freeman does really helped seal this deal. But, you're going to hear stories about this recruiting person and Mike Brown and Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman. This was a staff effort, obviously spearheaded by the position coach, but this was a staff effort because this staff knew this is a guy that we have to get Kaydon Finley, and they got it done. So it really was about that. And then it was, okay, can you weather the storm? Notre Dame, he didn't commit to Notre Dame during his official visit, but it was like, okay, I think we're going to get him. Then but you said, okay, that Texas visit, but everything we were hearing, I was told, I got a call on Sunday from somebody like, hey, early vibes are from Notre Dame people reaching out to them during the visit. It's like, they're not making a move. They're not pushing. They're not doing anything to kind of stunt Notre Dame's momentum. He's going to Texas. He, gave them their shot, but it just was, he was still feeling Notre Dame. And when he got done with the Texas visit, it was, okay, they couldn't do enough to swing him back or to swing him away from Notre Dame. And that's why Notre Dame was able to get that win. So tremendous job for the staff to just kind of get on him early, stay on him early, make him a big priority, get him on campus a bunch. He fell in love with Notre Dame on his multiple visits. And then to just weather the storm, not panic. Here's what's different about this recruiting staff than past recruiting staffs. And when I mean past, I mean before Marcus Freeman. This is not a shot at Chad Bowden. This is more about like what was going on before Marcus Freeman and Chad Bowden and those guys showed up. They would have flinched. When Texas started kind of gaining momentum, and it's the dad, went there and all this kind of stuff, in-state school, they're a playoff team and all that, Notre Dame would have flinched and they would have gone for other guys. Notre Dame obviously did their due diligence and offered other receivers, but the message to Kaydon Finley was always the same. You're our dude. You're our guy. We're looking to sign other players. Obviously, he knew that this is going to be a bigger receiver class, but you're our number one guy. And they never wavered from that. They didn't fill up the class with guys who aren't as good as him. They said, you're our number one guy. I was told at one point in time that, look, we want to sign at least 4 guys. And I said, well, what happens if 4 guys want to commit and Kaydon Finley wants to come? And before I could even finish the sentence, it was like, whenever Kaydon Finley wants to come to Notre Dame, he's a take. It was similar to what they said about Ian Premer. It's like, look, I don't care how many receivers we get in the class. If Kaydon Finley calls up and says, hey, I want to come to Notre Dame, you got a spot here, partner. So that was the message to him, is like, look, we love all these guys, but like, you're a guy that we absolutely have to go get. And they were able to get it done and get a huge, huge win.
I love listening to the backstories. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most is the piece that you put in there about his parents. Because I have to imagine when you are an alum, especially an alum like Jermichael Finley, you went on to the NFL, you played, you had a great career in the league. You're a very recognized name around Texas. To sit back and let your kid make a decision for his own, that's fantastic to hear. Because I would understand the urge, you know what I mean, to want to push to see your kid in the uniform that you played in. And so I think that's a testament to the parents of that young man. And so I'm really excited to see him in the blue and gold, obviously. But it is, I love hearing the recruiting backstories, love hearing the difference in, between previous staffs and the staff now, not flinching, and look, good segue into class impact, man. This staff has shown this year that when they want a guy, they will go out and get that guy. And look, in recruiting, you're always going to have your misses. I understand that. Nobody bats 1,000. I understand that. But, Brian, it's what you always say. It's who you get.
Right.
Not who you missed out on. It's who do you get.
Well, and also, Trevor, I mean, we can talk about that, and that's something I always believe to be true. But to really turn the corner, you also need to be able to get some of your top-level guys. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it so important. Like, some people are going to focus, well, yeah, but they missed on this top-level guy and that top-level guy, and that's fine. That's where you're what you said is correct. You're going to miss on some of those guys. You don't often – some teams will do that. Notre Dame has done that before in the offensive line. No, Notre Dame's done that at tight end, and before, when you think when they got Cole Kmet and Brock Wright, I mean, that's 1A and 1B, and so there's always times when, this particular year in a smaller position group, you hit all your A guys. I think Mike Mickens has had a couple groups like that, but it's more about like, okay, this is our A group, and we've got to get X number of guys from that A group. And I would argue that Bubba Frazier was in that A group the minute Notre Dame found his film. I loved Bubba Frazier, but Kaydon Finley was in that long-term A group where you've got to get at least one guy from that group. And Kaydon Finley's that guy. And that's the key, because like you said, at the end of the day, it's not about, well, they missed on that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. It's, okay, what does your class look like? And this gives you one of those A group players on your board that you say, okay, now you put him with a guy like Bubba Frazier and with Dylan Faison. It's like, okay, now we're cooking with this class. Because when you talk about class impact, look, this is a class that they expected to be bigger. They wanted it early on. It was like, okay, at least 3, but then it was like, okay, we need to go to 4 because they really want to remake the wide receiver room and also get it to the point where they don't have to keep going to the portal for really good players. So they got to 4, and it's like, okay, we'll go to 5 if it's the right 5. And now I think Notre Dame's at the point now where they're shooting for 5 based on who they have left on the board. But this is one you had to go get. So you obviously get Dylan Faison early. He's the first player to commit in this class. Then you go out in April. Actually, it's in March. They identify Bubba Frazier, offer him on the 4th. He visits. No, actually, they offered him in March. He visits on the 4th. And then by April 10th, he's in the class. And a very unsung member of this class because he's not ranked really high. But I'm telling you, watch the film of that kid, and that is a dynamic footballer. We might actually pop some of that in at the end just so people can be reminded of how good this receiver class is starting to look with those 3 guys. But you really needed to make sure that you got a kid like this to say, okay, we've got a difference maker, a game changer. We went toe-to-toe with the big boys. We beat one of the big boys. Georgia was starting to kind of push a little bit from Bubba Frazier, but it wasn't like the way Kaydon Finley got pushed by Texas and Texas A&M. You had to beat big boys from the SEC to get this kid in your class, and that's exactly what Notre Dame did. So now you have 3 receivers in the class. You have 3 different types of receivers in this class, and now you're hoping to add to it. But as you mentioned, Trev, last year's offensive class as a whole was good. I don't know that I'd call it elite. You needed to kind of say, okay, let's have another one that's elite. And when you talk about what they did at running back with Javion Osborne and Jonas Walton, when you talk about what they've done at tight end with an elite player like Ian Premer, a high upside guy like Preston Frizzell, what they've done on the offensive line with Tyler Merrill and Grayson McHugh and Ben Nichols and Sullivan Garvin and Gregory Patrick, Charlie Tom, like, okay, that position's loaded. Obviously, you kicked things off on offense. I think your second commitment in the class, I believe, was Dylan Faison or was Noah Grubbs. Now, all of a sudden, you're on the verge with another couple receiver commits of saying, okay, we had a bit of a down year on offense for a team trying to compete for a championship. And down year for Notre Dame is like, okay, receiver class is good. It wasn't great. You got a pretty good running back. You got a good quarterback. You got a really good tight end. You got a pretty darn good offensive line class. So this wasn't like this bad class, but it wasn't quite as good as the 24 class or the 23 class. And that was really kind of like, okay, you need a bounce back year to get this thing really rolling. And that's what Notre Dame really needs to get this thing going. So I think that's what makes this such an important commitment for Notre Dame, and why this is something that you froze, Trev. That's why I thought your thing was about to go out. It looked like you fell asleep. Your eyes froze shut. But that's why getting him is so important, Trevor, because you need this type of player. And then the other reason this is this impacts the class, Trev, is this is a kid that I grade as evaluate can play everywhere. And for Alito, he plays everywhere. He plays in the slot. He plays field outside. He plays in the boundary. He works the middle of the field. He works the quick game. He works the outside. He works a screen game. He'll do jet sweeps. He literally can do everything, and it projects to the next level that he can do everything. So you have a guy that you can plug and play at all 3 spots, which helps you when you're balancing the rest of the class out. It's like, okay, you don't just say, okay, well, he's a boundary, so now we've got our boundary. We don't need another boundary. It's like, well, he can play everywhere. I think it also helps because when you talk about impact the class, I think they needed at least one receiver in this class that could come in and push right away. And Kaydon Finley, as you guys will see on film, is a show up day one and compete right away in day one type of player. And that's what makes this a huge, huge pickup on top of all the other reasons this is a big pickup.
Yeah, you look at the makeup of Notre Dame's receiving room right now, and after Malachi Fields leaves, there are some question marks at the boundary position. You look at the makeup of the roster, and it's like there's nobody on there that you can confidently say, as of today, they have another boundary receiver that can just step up in 2026 and be that guy. Now, we talked a lot about Micah Gilbert yesterday. Get my days mixed up. It feels like a Saturday. I know it's not, but it feels like a Saturday. But we talked a lot about Micah Gilbert yesterday, and he could potentially step up into that role. But when you have somebody like Kaydon Finley, you never know what that could look like. And to your point, somebody that can come in and push right away. I know we're getting ready to pop in the film, and you guys are all going to see why he's going to have the opportunity to push right away when he gets in. Yeah. This is a very talented kid.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, boundary. But, look, tomorrow night, it was a 7 p.m., Devin Fitzgerald's going to make his decision. He's going to pick between Notre Dame and Clemson and Stanford and UCLA. If they get him, he also, I think, projects best into the boundary. So let's just say you get both of those players, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, we got two guys that can only play one position. That doesn't do you a lot of good. That's what just makes Kaydon Finley so effective, because I could see him being the next, like next in line after Jaden Greathouse is gone. Let's say Jaden comes back for senior year, and they look at it and they're like, look, Kaydon Finley can play a lot of spots, but man, we think he can do what Jaden Greathouse did. And I'd be like, fine, cool, let's do it. Let's put him there. They may say, hey, look, we think he can go to the field and run, deeper stuff and be a possession guy at certain instances, run screen game, be a perimeter blocker, do all the things that the outside Z needs to do, work the digs, work the overs, work the comebacks, work the go routes, win contested catches, win go balls, win posts, run the deep undercuts and things like that, and thrive there. And he can thrive there. Or you could say, hey, look, we like this guy in the boundary. He can win one-on-one. He can win contested catches. You're not going to use him the same way you are Malachi Fields as a boundary player, but he can play boundary and do different things. And if you go back and watch what Mike Denbrock did at LSU, and to a degree at Cincinnati, but especially at LSU, when he had Malik Neighbors and he had Brian Thomas and he had, Kyron Lacey and that group of guys, he would do a lot of things where he would move guys around. So like on one snap, Malik Neighbors is in the slot. On the next play, he's at Z, and then he'd have him at boundary at times. He'd motion him around. And it makes it hard for teams to kind of match up against you. But if a guy can't play, I can line anybody up in the boundary. I could line up Gerby Lambert in the boundary if I wanted to. It doesn't mean he's going to go out there and dominate as a pass catcher in that position, right? I mean, you got to put a guy out there that can make plays at that spot and presents himself as a weapon, because there are certain guys that like, look, I'm just not going to put this guy at that position and he's going to do a whole lot. And I mean, there are plays, if you go back to his freshman year, there are plays, Jordan Faison had a couple big plays from the boundary because of the different type of concepts that Notre Dame was running. And so that's the thing you look at and say, can you present yourself as a weapon in that position, or are you just lining up there to get yourself away from something? The thing about Kaydon Finley that you talk about how he impacts the class, he can line up and be okay, you got to account for that guy at every spot. And that's what makes him unique, because I don't believe that's true about Bubba Frazier, partly because of his size. I don't think that's true about Dylan Faison. Those are really good football players, but they're more, you're a slot or a Z. Where with Kaydon Finley, it's Devin Fitzgerald, if they are able to get him, he's more of a boundary Z. Braden Robinson's a slot, maybe Z. Kaydon Finley's a wide receiver, meaning you can put him anywhere. And I think that just adds a ton to this class, Trev, on top of the tools and all that other kind of stuff.
Couldn't agree more, man. Well, I think it's time to pop in some film.
Yeah, I want to, before we pop the film up, though, Trev, I did want to just give a couple particulars about Kaydon Finley as you break down this film. So this film is the first 10 games of his high school season. He does not have on this highlight film the playoff games that he played in last year. So he had over 50 catches. Let me see what it was. He actually has it on his phone. 56 catches, 1,003 yards, and 14 touchdowns in the regular season. Then he went out in the postseason and he had 4 catches for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 63-7 playoff win. He played the first half. Then in a playoff win over Abilene, he had 5 catches for 169 yards, 3 more touchdowns. Then in a quarterfinal win against Tascosa, he has 7 catches for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in a playoff loss to Denton Ryan in the state semifinals, he had 9 catches for 96 yards. So he had, what did I have in my article, Trev? I had it in my commit article. I think it was like 29 catches for, let me find it. It was 25 catches for 429 yards and 7 touchdowns in the playoffs. That's not even reflected on the film we're about to watch, because this highlight tape is just the regular season. So just keep that in mind, because a comment that I wrote in my class impact article, which I also published when he committed, was when you evaluate a receiver, Trev, you're looking for a lot of different things. You're looking for tools. Like the 2 most important traits that trump all others when I'm evaluating a receiver is, does he have the physical traits to thrive at this position? And does he have some football intelligence? Like that, where I don't care if he knows this and that, but does he have football intelligence? Does he have the physical tools that I can then teach him how to play the game technically and fundamentally? I've seen receivers that don't have great production become great college players, because there's a lot of things that impact production. But when you find those guys that have it all, the physical tools, the football aptitude, the smarts, the intelligence to play the game, he also has the technical prowess to thrive at the position, and he's got great production, you understand why Kaydon Finley is a big-time recruit, because he literally checks all those boxes. And that's also why I talk about the ceiling is very high, Trevor, but so's the floor. And you're going to see that as we dive into this film. But that's one of the things I love about this kid, is because he really does check all the boxes. You're going to start seeing him here. We talked about Trev starting off right in the slot. One thing I love about this kid on film, and you guys are going to see it, he's good after the catch. He's actually a better player after the catch than I thought he would be. He's not a juker per se, but he's strong and he's got some suddenness to him, so he can make people miss and make plays after the catch. But one thing I like about him, Trevor, is one of the biggest complaints that I have about Notre Dame's receivers. I love these got blocking highlights early in his highlights. But one thing I've complained, yes. But one thing and you even see it here on this particular play. One thing I complain about all the time with Notre Dame's receivers over the years, whether it's this year with Mike Brown's guys, whether it was Chancey Stuckey or Dale Alexander, is they don't play with urgency. They don't come off the ball with urgency, meaning there's purpose to what they're doing coming off the line. With Kaydon Finley, he absolutely comes off the line with urgency, unless there's a reason not to have that speed, and that's something that I absolutely love about this kid as a player. Here you see the ball in his hands.
That previous play where he was stalk blocking, that goes to the football IQ that you're talking about. He goes to initially block the corner crashing down, recognizes that he's being covered up, advances upfield, stalk blocks a corner, drives him out of bounds.
Just punishes him right out of bounds and then puts him on the ground.
Great play. But that's that football IQ that you're talking about, understanding the game, having a feel for it.
And then here's the physical tools. You know, he's running with speed. He's got his eyes downfield. You see the quickness. He finds his crease, and then boom, he makes a cutback. This is behind him. This cut's behind him, Trevor. That's not in front of him. The guy trailing him, he cuts behind. That's that instincts, that feel to see grass, to see green, and then find it. And it's a very impressive play. Very impressive play.
He's very smooth with the ball in his hands. You know, like not the super twitchy, like type of guy.
Like Braden Robinson or Bubba Frazier. Right. He's not like them. Right.
But it's just very smooth. Like there is no, like it's I mean, smooth is really the only way that I can describe it.
No, it's very fluid. He's very fluid.
Thank you.
And this is an example too, Trev. Just athletically, he's very fluid. Look at this body control. Look how easily he flips his hips outside to get this football. He's got a pretty long reach. So he's got very good body control, but he's got a very nice catch radius. The other thing too is well, I'll talk about that at the end. But this is what I'm talking about. Look at the urgency with which he comes off the line. Look at that burst. Is a little bit of a wasted step or a little bit of a dip at the top, but not a lot of wasted movement for him for a high school kid. He's playing with urgency. eats up that cushion. He's trying to see how that guy's going to react, and then sticks him at the top, outruns him over the top for a post. And look how well he tracks the football. He's got great downfield tracking skills too. And a better ball, and he's wide open and the top of the C. He's catching that ball at the top of the C for a touchdown. But really nice ability to adjust and go back to the football. You see him a lot in the slot. He plays outside. Look at the acceleration there. Now, here's the thing. This is a slot fade, right? I think it is, the way he comes off the line. It could just be a seam route. Looks like he's trying to slot fade it, but then he recognizes that corner is bailing. So what does he do? He then bends it back inside over the top of the seam and doesn't let that corner impact the play. That's that smart football play that we're talking about, where he has that feel for what's the defense trying to do. But then also, I could be smart as I want, Trevor, but if I went out there and tried to run a route right now against a Division I football player, I'm going to get knocked in my butt because I'm not that kind of athlete. And here, it's okay. It's great that you know what you're doing, but the ability to accelerate and run past this guy is really outstanding. And that's something that's he's not a burner. At least I don't see that on film. Like, I don't see Bubba Frazier speed, and I don't see Braden Robinson speed, but he's plenty fast enough. Like, I think he's faster coming to high school than what Jaden Greathouse was. But look at the urgency with which he comes off the line. He's running a slant route. This is another example I'm talking about. His first 3 steps look like he's about to run a slot fade. He's running a go route, and that safety reacts accordingly. He sees urgency off the line. Well, why is he coming off the line with urgency? Because he's trying to run past me. And then that gets that separation. He catches the ball, and he's got now room to work because a little bit better ball, he would have more room to work because he gets that separation with his initial burst. And that's what I talk about with Kaydon Finley. When I talk about he's got that, he plays with a sense of urgency that I really, really like. And you see what I'm talking about here, man. It's just he gets after it. There's intentionality behind what he's doing. And, just like the overall, like something like this, there's a clip online that I saw where if you could see this from the tight copy, it's even more impressive because this guy has an initial angle, but then you'll see it. It's real subtle, like right there. You see that late burst to cross that guy's face because he knows the ball's coming. He knows he has to accelerate past that guy and make that catch. This is a much tougher catch when you see it from the tight copy than what it was from here. And it speaks to his overall feel for how to play this game. He understands how to manipulate speed. He understands how to manipulate leverage. He understands how to, give a guy a little fake because I want to go here, I want to go there. He knows when to slow down. He knows when to come off the line with less urgency because there's a reason for it. And then he's just got the physical tools to say, dude, I'm just better than you. And that's all this play is. Like, dude, I'm just better than you are. And so this ball's going to be mine. And, like we've seen him make a lot of plays from the slot, but this is one where he's making a play on the outside, just goes up and makes a one-handed grab for a touchdown. And that's what excites me about what this kid brings to the table.
One of the things that I like, you want to talk about consistency. We talked about that a lot yesterday with the receiving core. For the most part, now there are some routes where, if he's coming onto a screen or whatnot, the first 5 yards of his routes, because he fires off with so much urgency from this angle, look like it could all be the same route, legitimately. I mean, with how much urgency he has. But you go through and you look at how smooth of an athlete he is, getting in and out of breaks.
But there's no urgency out of this right. Why, Trev? Because look at the route he's running. It's okay. How's this guy going to play me? It would not shock me based on just his release. He's like, look, I see zone. I see that safety off. I know I got to find a spot behind that linebacker. So I'm going to delay. I got to time this up right. And now he's not coming slow, but he's not like firing off the ball here because he knows I got to find that soft spot. And then he gets to that soft spot. Once he gets to the opening, he sees there's nobody inside. Then he accelerates. That's that feel for the game that we're talking about. And then, then he's a little bit hard to bring down. They got to get 4 guys involved to get to him. But those are things you look at and see, and you're just like, man, this is what we're talking about. Here's another great contested catch that he makes. He makes a lot of those. And this is what I'm saying. He's catching quick game, Trev. He's working the middle of the field against zone. He's working jet sweeps. He's running go balls. He's hitting posts. He's going to hit some comebacks. Like, that's the thing I'm talking about, is he does a little bit of everything. And here's another example of why is he not firing off the ball here? Because he's got to time this up perfectly to come underneath this guy, and he does. Like, this is smart. Now, I personally would have liked to see this be inverted pre-snap, from the coaching standpoint. But look how well he kind of manipulates his speed to come right underneath that guy and create that post-snap switch. And then he gets underneath, and then you see him find the ball, one-handed catch, and then he accelerates, and he's going to get to the end zone. Like, this is a kid that combines good size, intelligence, athleticism, and just skill. There's a lot to be said about skill, Trevor. And you and I have seen receivers over the years that had great athleticism but weren't great receivers. And he's got the tools to be a great receiver, not just a dynamic athlete or a guy that's big or whatever the case may be. And this, I love this stuff. He's there to fight you in the run game. And he's a talented player, man.
You can tell he's the son of a tight end, man, by the way he blocks.
Yes. It's like, man, I better bring a little bit or I'm gonna be a little bit of trouble. But no, I mean, you see the skills, guys. You see the athletic skills. You see the size. Now, the size part's interesting because I thought he looked about 6'1" on film. 190, 195. You knew he was going to fill out. He's listed at 200 pounds now. But, Trev, I've sent you a picture, and I've got two pictures now because I have another one. There's actually one on his Instagram page where he's with Mike Denbrock. I'm 6 feet tall. Mike Denbrock's at least 2 inches taller than me. And they're basically the same height. I sent you the picture of him and Marcus Freeman from the official visit, and he looks at least 1.5 inches taller than Marcus Freeman, if not 2 inches taller than Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman's about 6'1". So I think he's grown. And when you consider his dad was 6'4.5" and over 240 pounds, it's not a surprise he's still growing. So his projection into the boundary based on what I've seen physically looks even better now. That's why I talk about coming into a senior year. That's why I think there's a chance for him to jump into that top 50 range as a player, and then potentially even, 5-star range, because he's got good size, but not elite size. But what I'm seeing from him, I think it won't shock me if I find out he's hit a little bit of a growth spurt here this offseason, and he's taller and a little bit longer than he was as a junior. Kids don't stop growing in the 11th grade. Some do. I mean, I was basically 5'11", almost 6 feet tall in the 9th grade, and that I'm 6 feet tall now. Some people keep growing, especially when you've got the kind of genes that he's got. So that's something that I found unique as I've seen kind of pictures of him this spring and summer, that I think he's going to be a little bit bigger, and I think that's going to be something that, and if he can repeat the production he had last year to some degree, that's why I think he's on the verge. His points for me right now are already close to being top 50 to 75. He's already like right on the cusp. He's like about 5 to 7 points away, if I can remember correctly. And this is on a 600 to 700 point scale. So he's real close to being there now with the additional size. But I got to see that size impacts him as a player. It's fine if you grow, but if it doesn't change how you play the game, then it doesn't really matter. So that's why I say I think he's on the verge of kind of taking that thing to the next level and saying, hey, I think this kid might, this kid might even be more dynamic, more effective, more productive next season, because I think you're going to see the athleticism still be there, if not get stronger and faster, but he's going to be bigger as well. And that's why I think he's going to go up even more. But I'm not going to raise the guy's grade because I saw a picture of him looking taller. I need to see it on film that, yeah, he looks longer and it impacts his game. So that's why I'm not jumping his grade up yet, but that's why he is where he is. But he's already very close. Yeah. And his production in high school, I mean, production only takes so far. I don't care a whole lot about a competition, but when you're producing the way he does and you know who he's playing against, you start to even appreciate that even more.
I definitely wish we could pop in some of the film, or the film was available of him playing in the postseason. Because when I read those numbers in the article that you put out, I was like, no way that's what those numbers were. But I mean, Notre Dame got a good one, man.
Let me see if he's got the individual games. I don't think that the individual games are down there, but no, it's not. It's not down there. But Yeah, I'm going to try to find it, but yeah, he went off in the postseason.
Yeah, when I read that article, I was like, yeah, those numbers are gaudy. Those are nice.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, let's kind of tie a bow on this whole thing and talk about what's next for Notre Dame and the recruiting trail.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not done. I'm actually going to, as I promised, I'm going to hold true to what I said I was going to do. I'm going to, while we're talking about this, I'm going to pull up some Bubba Frazier film just to remind people of, that this isn't the only big time receiver that Notre Dame is getting. We're just going to pop in some Bubba film here, Trev, while we're going over this. But what's interesting is when you talk about what's next at wide receiver, I mean, we're kind of going to know very quickly. And we know what the actual schedule is for what's next for Notre Dame at wide receiver. And that's the next 2 days. There's 2 receivers left on the board. You've got 3 receivers in the class now. There's 2 guys left on the board. Devin Fitzgerald from Phoenix, Arizona, same high school as Creed Thomas and Benjamin Morrison. And then you've got Braden Robinson from Red Oak High School and another Texas kid who makes his decision on Sunday. So Devin is, Trev, you found an article where we were trying to get his time confirmed. We found an article that confirmed that time. Looks like it's going to be 7 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night, which works out perfectly for me because I'm taking my parents out for their 50th wedding anniversary. So we'll be back in time to publish the stories and also do a show if he commits to Notre Dame. And then, find out what he's going to do tomorrow. And then on Sunday, Braden Robinson makes his decision at 6 o'clock. He's going to be deciding between Miami and Arizona, and of course Notre Dame. So Devin Fitzgerald, 6'2", 195, 200 pounds. Joey O'Brien got a lot of love for how dominant he was at the OT7s last week, but a lot of people don't realize that there was a lot of buzz about how good Devin Fitzgerald was as well. So that's a big one for Notre Dame. He's deciding between, as I said earlier, Notre Dame, Clemson, UCLA, and Stanford are the 4 that he's primarily looking at. Braden Robinson, as I said, is Miami, Arizona, and of course Notre Dame. So, I mean, that's really it. You get one of those 2, you're good to go. You've got a heck of a class. If you get both of them, you're now you're talking about a top 5 to 10 receiver class this year where you've got different types of skill. You've got speed in certain players. You've got production. I mean, Braden Robinson was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Kaydon Finley was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Devin Fitzgerald had very good production last year. Bubba Frazier had very good production. Bubba's overall numbers were outstanding. He had rushing yards, receiving yards, kick return yards. So you have 3 guys in the class, if they get those guys, that were over 1,000 yards last year, in either receiving only or in all of it. And so you've got playmakers, you've got bigger guys, you've got speed, you've got it all. And that's what they're trying to close with. And I think they ultimately made the decision. And by the way, for those who are maybe just joining, that's Bubba Frazier right there that we're watching film of. But that's the key, Trevor. The staff went through a process of, okay, are we going to take 5? And I think that's where some of the decision-making came of, are we going to take this guy or that guy's? Can we get to 5? And they made the ultimate decision to get to 5 the weekend of the 13th official visits. That decision was made even easier when Ian Premer committed before Evan Jacobson, because I think that allowed Notre Dame to decide, and what I think they're going to decide ultimately is that Evan's not a take anymore because they have Ian Premer. So now you feel even better about taking a 5th guy in this class, and that's what they're going to try to do these next 2 nights. And just overall in the class, it's the 2 receivers. It's Nick Reddish, who's going to make a decision on July 11th between Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. There's a couple other schools involved, but it's Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. And then, of course, Elijah Golden, who's down to Notre Dame, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Virginia Tech. It's between Notre Dame and Alabama. He makes his decision on July 26th. That's it. I mean, that's it in the 26th class. So receiver-wise, next 2 nights. I mean, in the next 48 hours, we're going to know just how good this Notre Dame receiver class is going to be, or if they're going to come up maybe a guy short or not. We're going to know that, and I feel good. And we'll talk about both of those decisions after they're done. We'll have shows to break down whatever it is they decide to do on those days, and we'll be able to break the class down even further. But again, big win for Mike Brown, but he's going to try to not be done these next couple days and add a couple more guys to the class and really top this thing off in impressive fashion. That's going to get them up to, Trev, if they get both, that's going to get them up to 16 commits in this offensive class. They are absolutely restocking this group because you think about it, they have a quarterback, 2 running backs. If they get both of the kids, that's 5 receivers. That gives them 8. Then you got 2 tight ends, and then you have 6 offensive linemen. That's 16 kids on offense in this class, which I think was needed. And they are really, really filling up. And but they're filling up with really good football players. And that's what gets me really excited about this one.
Yeah, they're absolutely hot on the recruiting trail. There is no doubt about it. We do have a couple of super chats to get to before we head out of here today. And I think I jinxed myself. I'm sorry if you guys can hear the fireworks going off. I was talking yesterday in the show about, I live downtown. You're not going to hear a lot of fireworks. Basically, for the last 25 minutes, they've been letting it sing outside of my window. So
yeah, there's one that went off outside of ours. I had Rita sleeping over to me my left because she hates fireworks. She gets so scared. And I finally got her to sleep, and she was kind of starting to snore a little bit. And a really loud one went off, and she jumps up, and she's running behind me and under the little desk I have over here. So I felt bad for her. But, yeah, all good, man. It's celebration. This Indianapolis is celebrating the commitment of Kaydon Finley. That's the way I look at it. South Bend, Granger, we're definitely celebrating that out here. That's what I keep telling myself. It's Independence Day. It's Kaydon Finley Commitment Day. Pretty awesome day. Got my folks in town. My wife's with me. It's a pretty awesome day. Made smash burgers today had watermelon, corn on the cob, made some homemade potato, fries. So yeah, it's been a pretty awesome day and gets capped off with a commitment from Kaydon Finley. But yeah, let's get to these 2 super chats here before we get out of here, and we can all get back to our Independence Day celebrations.
Super chat from John Benko. Thank you, John. Appreciate the super chat. How will Notre Dame feature Kaydon Finley differently than Texas would have?
I can't speak to how Texas would use him. I mean, they're different offenses, but in a lot of ways, I don't know that there'd be a whole lot of a difference. I think the thing about Steve Sarkisian is he's also a smart offensive football coach that understands the value of moving guys around and creating matchup issues. They did that a ton at Alabama. I did a breakdown video in 2020 when they were getting ready to play Alabama, where I said, you're going to see Devontae Smith line up in the boundary, field number 1, field number 2, field number 3, and then boundary number 2, where they were like in an empty or in a 2x2, move them all around, motion them, just do a lot of different things with them, and just kind of get them rolling. And so I don't think it's a lot of different. There's some different schemes that Texas would run that Notre Dame runs, but I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference between how he'd be featured in either offense. And I think that's something that helped Notre Dame, that it's not like, oh my gosh, Texas has this plan for him. That's this super intricate plan. And how's Notre Dame going to compare? I think if you're Mike Denbrock, you're just like, okay, sure. We didn't throw the ball a whole lot last year, but let me show you what Jaden Greathouse did in the last 2 games. But, while we're here, while I got you here, why don't we just pop in some 2023 film and I'm just going to let you watch Malik Neighbors a little bit and just kind of see what I did with Malik Neighbors. And we got this Brian Thomas kid. He was a pretty good player. Let's see what we did with Brian Thomas. And I think that helped Notre Dame's cause because Mike Denbrock also has a track record of, producing really good wide receivers, whether it was at Will Fuller at Notre Dame, whether it was Alec Pierce and Trey Tucker and Tyler Scott and Michael Young at Cincinnati, whether it was Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors at LSU. And then, of course, this past year, what we saw with the breakout late in the year from Jaden Greathouse. So I think you could see that Notre Dame was able to present a vision to Kaydon Finley that's like, look, you're not going to go to Texas and just be way different and you're just going to be featured all this time. Yeah, last year that was the case because that's who we needed to be. But there's a reason we're recruiting you. There's a reason we're recruiting all these receivers in this class. There's a reason we're recruiting Ian Premer, because we want to be a dynamic, explosive 40-point-a-game offense. Mike Denbrock does not want to be a ball control, slug it out, win 24-16 games every weekend. He wants to beat you 50-0. That's the kind of competitor he is. If you want to take away the pass, we'll run it for 300 on you. If you want to try to shut down our run, we're going to throw it for 300 on you. And that's the vision that he's selling. And he's got film that can prove it. Well, what about it? What he done at Notre Dame? Okay, cool. I'm sure he could just pop in some Will Fuller film and be like, yeah, this is my best receiver the last time I was the OC at Notre Dame. He was pretty good, and sell it very easily. So that track record helps a ton. And then, of course, Mike Brown can point to what he did with Greathouse this year, you can point to what he did at Cincinnati as Mike Denbrock's receivers coach and say, hey, the receivers coach and the OC all have a track record of putting receivers in the NFL. And that's that has helped them tremendously. So I don't know that the pitch was a whole lot different other than the unique concepts with which the two teams play.
Good deal. Michael Rogers with the super chat. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you. Faith, destiny, Notre Dame.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. It's a good day, man. It's a good day to be a Notre Dame fan. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. So, yeah, it's great stuff, man. I'm excited, Trev. Again, wrapping it up, this is a huge commitment from Notre Dame. This is a top 100 football player. In the last really month and a half, you've added 2 top 100 backs, now a top 100 receiver, a top 100, actually for me, a top 75 tight end, and you've added a dynamic offensive line class. You've also added a receiver that I have more top 250 because of size, but as you saw in the film we were watching, another dynamic football player. The offense has really taken off this last 2 months, and they're going to try to cap it off with 2 more pieces here over the next couple of days. But this is one of those ones. I said when we came out of after the Premier commitment, I said, listen, this class can't be what it's capable of being without them getting 2 players. One of them was Elijah Golden on defense, but the other one was Kaydon Finley on offense. This was an absolute must-get. Need him in the class. It can still be really good, but it can't be elite without Kaydon Finley. So now that you have him in the class, I think this offensive class is elite now. Now it's just about let's add even more is the way they're looking at it. So you've got a very talented quarterback, arguably the best running back room in the country, one of the best tight end rooms, if not the best tight end room in the country. You've got one of the best offensive line classes in the country. And now you've got one of the better wide receiver classes in the country. They're going to keep trying to add to it. But you can finish off kind of with your thoughts on it, Trev, but I just felt like this is one of the most important commits in the class. I don't want to overstate it. It's just a fact. You couldn't have been the class you wanted to be and needed to be without Kaydon Finley. That's how big this one is. And I don't love the hyperbole of every recruit's the stud and star and all this, but sometimes when it's true, you got to emphasize it. And that's what I feel about Kaydon Finley. This is one of those ones that this is a true, just gap closer overall, but also for this class, you couldn't be what you wanted to be without him. And now you got him. And now it's time to finish this thing off.
Especially because of the position, man. Look, there's been a lot of questions and some warranted questions about wide receiver recruiting and what is the outlook going to look like, because a lot of the conversation that we've been hearing has been, oh man, Notre Dame gets, an elite defensive back, an elite safety, and 2 elite running backs, and an elite D lineman, and a great O-line class. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what Notre Dame has kind of done before, but where's the receiver? Where is that high-end receiver? And then after Connor Salmon elected to go to Clemson, and then some other guys kind of came off the board, questions started to be raised, which built up the conversation around Kaydon Finley being that must-get guy. And Mike Brown went in and closed. We are slowly kind of coming around to that conversation of what are they going to say now, man?
Right.
And it's a really awesome spot to be.
What's your thing you're complaining about now? Like,
yeah,
what is it?
What are they going to say now?
But you could have had something to say, yeah, this is a good receiver class. It's like last year's receiver class. I think last year's receiver class is very underrated.
Agreed.
Like from the minute Notre Dame offered Elijah Burris, I was like, guys, this guy can play. I don't care what the recruiting services say. I don't care what high school coaches say. I don't care what anybody says about him. Like, I know the film. I know the area. I'm telling you, this kid can flat out play. And then he went out his senior year, and you saw what he could do. And then we saw what he did this spring at Notre Dame. You saw Scrap Richardson. You're like, dude, this is a great evaluation. Will he pan out to be a great receiver? I don't know the answer to that. But this is the kind of kid you take a shot on because he's an elite athlete that you just got to hope that you can teach him how to play the game. Jerome Bettis Jr. was a solid addition. It was a much better receiver class than people made it out to be. But even then, as high as I was on it was – but I don't know if any of them are ones. Like, I think Elijah Burris could be an outstanding number 2, meaning not a number 2 in the depth chart, but like You've got your elite guy. Who's your partner in crime, so to speak. And I think Elijah Burris can be outstanding in that regard. It's kind of like he can be Raymond McKnight, but who's your Jeff Samardzija? Like, that's the question. And Raymond McKnight's a heck of a player, but you needed the Jeff Samardzija or the Mo Stovall type of guy to complement. And that's what Kaydon Finley can be. And so that's where last year's class, as good as it was, and it was very underrated, that's why it didn't get like that A grade for me, because I think you do need a dude. And this class now has a bona fide. And when I mean a dude, I don't mean look, y'all saw the film. Bubba Fraser's a dude. I'm referring to more specifically, let's be less kind of slangy and just, you need that number one player that you can build your offense around, that defenses have to build their game plans around. And Kaydon Finley has that potential to be that kind of player. And that's what was missing, and that's what he is.
Well, listen, folks, that's going to do it for our breakdown of Kaydon Finley's commitment to Notre Dame. Happened today at 8:30 p.m., and he announced it on his Instagram. Notre Dame landed a good one. 4-star elite wide receiver from Aledo, Texas. Top 100 player in the country. And I'm really excited for him to play his senior year so we can pop in some more of that film, get even more excited about this commitment. But before you head out of here today, folks, please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please share this podcast with your friends and family. Big start to the recruiting weekend for Notre Dame, and hopefully they're not going to be done. It's all the more reason to have that subscription button hit. It's all the more reason to share it with all of your Notre Dame friends and family, because Brian and I are going to be here.
If we go live tomorrow night, if we go live on Sunday night, for whatever reason, you guys will get that notification bell. So make sure you get notifications turned on as well.
Sure will. But the best way to stay in the loop and stay in the now, you see it scrolling down there at the bottom of the screen, boards.irishbreakdown.com. That's where we're going to have all the recruiting intel pieces, all of the follow-up, a lot of the questions that get asked in mailbags and super chats. You can find those answers in the Champions Lounge, the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.
Happy Independence Day, everybody.